You know that person who gives the best advice and never takes any? The one who can sit with someone else's pain for hours without flinching, who holds space so naturally, so completely, so genuinely, that people leave every conversation with them feeling lighter than when they arrived, and who carries everything that was just handed to them alone on the drive home, who deflects when someone asks how they're doing, who laughs it off, who says, "I'm fine," with such practiced convincingness that even the people who love them most stopped checking a long time ago. Not because nobody cares, but because the therapist friend made themselves so good at being okay that the people around them forgot to question it. And here's the part that nobody talks about. The therapist friend isn't just emotionally generous, they're emotionally trained. Somewhere, long before the 2 a.m. phone calls, long before they became everyone's safe place, something happened that made holding other people's pain feel safer than sitting with their own. That's not a personality trait. That's psychology. And today, on Mentra Psychology, we're breaking down exactly what that psychology looks like, where it comes from, what it costs, and what the therapist friend deserves to finally hear about themselves. Not as the person who holds everyone else together, but as the person who deserves to be held too. And if this is already resonating, go ahead and like and subscribe. Because this community was built for exactly the people who give everything and rarely ask for anything in return. Stay with me. Let's dismantle the story the world tells about the therapist friend. The one that says emotional generosity is just who they are, a personality trait, a gift, something they were simply born with. It's not. The therapist friend wasn't born giving. They were shaped into it. By environments, by experiences, by a version of love that came with conditions they learned to meet, before anyone ever thought to ask what they needed in return. Here's where the psychology of the therapist friend gets fascinating. Psychologists have identified a pattern called compulsive caregiving, a behavioral profile where an individual's sense of safety, worth, and belonging becomes psychologically dependent on being needed by others. And here's the fact that should reframe everything. Research consistently links compulsive caregiving to early environments where love was conditional on performance, where being helpful, calm, and emotionally available produced safety, and having needs of your own produced something else entirely. The therapist friend didn't choose this role. They survived into it. But compulsive caregiving only explains the behavioral pattern. It doesn't explain the emotional experience underneath it. Psychologists call it empathic enmeshment, the inability to distinguish between your own emotional state and the emotional state of the people around you. For the therapist friend, someone else's pain doesn't just register as information, it lands as responsibility. And here's the part that should stop you completely. Research on highly empathic individuals found that the same neurological mirroring system responsible for deep emotional attunement, the mirror neuron network, is significantly more active in chronic caregivers than in the general population. In other words, the therapist friend doesn't just feel for you, they feel as you. And carrying that level of emotional data from every person in their circle simultaneously, without a system for releasing it, is one of the most quietly exhausting experiences in human psychology.
Now let's talk about a culture that romanticizes the therapist friend. The one that turns emotional availability into an aesthetic, that celebrates the person who always shows up, always listens, always knows what to say, without ever stopping to ask what that level of consistent emotional output is actually costing them. Think about how we talk about the therapist friend, the glowing descriptions. She's so easy to talk to. He just gets it. I don't know what I'd do without them. All of that is true, and none of it asks the right question. Because a culture that celebrates emotional generosity without acknowledging emotional sustainability isn't honoring the therapist friend. It's consuming them. And the therapist friend, trained from early on to find worth in being needed, absorbs that consumption as love. Now, honesty matters here. Not every therapist friend is operating from a place of unresolved psychology. Some people are genuinely healthily nurturing, with solid boundaries, reciprocal relationships, and a clear sense of where their responsibility ends and someone else's begins. But for many therapist friends, the ones this video is really speaking to, the caregiving isn't fully a choice. It's a compulsion dressed in the language of love. So ask yourself honestly, Do you show up for people because it genuinely fills you? Or because the alternative, not being needed, feels like something dangerously close to not being loved? Because one is generosity, the other is a wound that never got a name. But for the therapist friend who is genuinely doing the work of understanding themselves, the same empathy that made you everyone else's safe place can become your own. The same attunement that reads other people's pain with such precision can be turned inward, toward the version of you that has been waiting, quietly and patiently, for someone to finally ask how they're doing. And mean it. You were never just a role. You were never just the person who held everyone else together. You are someone who deserves to be held too. Psychologists call it compulsive caregiving. On Mentra Psychology, we call it the quiet cost of being the person everyone else could always count on, before you ever learned to count on yourself. You gave everyone a safe place to land. It's time to build one for yourself. Are you the therapist friend? Or do you know someone who is? Drop it in the comments. This community was built for exactly that conversation. If this video found you at the right moment, subscribe to Mentra Psychology. The next video goes even deeper. Click it. You'll understand why.